Hey everybody, well you just got to see my cold start procedure for Bimble. When it's cold, every carbureted bike, you kind of got to figure out what it wants before you get it started up. What I do is no ignition, ignition off, give it 5 kicks, get some air and some fuel flowing through there, and then back off and just wait a minute. Let that fuel evaporate and become vapor in the combustion chamber. Then turn the key on. I also raise the idle just a little bit and give it 2 or 3 kicks and she fires right up. That's that. Before we get started on today's video, I'd like to thank today's sponsors. Chad once again and my buddy Dan. Those 2 guys are determined to keep the lights on and I thank them for that. Everybody give them props. And what we're going to talk about today is my rationale for buying this. Because in the past I did a video talking about how other bikes that I've owned in the past kind of influenced what I was doing with the GT. You know, how they kind of led me to that decision. And something similar happened with this one. And that's what we're going to talk about. So about 25 years ago, I lived in Bloomington, Illinois, in about the year 2000. And I worked for Mitsubishi Motors at that time. And that was when I had my Ducati 750 Monster. I rode around on that. And I've always been somebody that has a decent bike, but generally has a crappy car. Because I just don't care about cars. And while I worked at Mitsubishi, I kind of got the inside, track on, they don't make them like they used to. What was important to Mitsubishi, they didn't really care about, the customer, down the road. It was a matter of, will this car make it through the warranty period? Yeah? Okay, good. Good enough. They didn't care about the car beyond that. And so that kind of, put me off on modern cars. I just don't like them. Still don't like them. I fuss over the tires and things I put on my bikes. But when it's time for tires for my car, I just go buy the cheapest crap. I just walk in and be like, what's the cheapest black round things that hold air that you can put on there? Put those on it. I just don't care. But at that time, I was driving a Dodge Omni GLH, and that car was on its last leg. It was done. I needed to buy another car. And I was also restoring an old Vespa at that time that I had gotten as a basket case. And I was, trying to figure out what parts I needed and stuff like that with that bike. And also at that time, burgeoning internet, around, 1999, 2000, you still didn't want to buy things off the internet. But there was a scooter company in Chicago that was kind of the place to go if you were going to order, vintage Vespa parts at that time. It was a little place called Scooter Works. So it was a couple-hour drive for me to get there, but I wanted to go there instead of ordering through the mail because I wanted to visit the shop. I kind of like those kind of life experiences, instead of just ordering everything the quick and easy way. Sometimes I'll go and spend a couple hours and, visit the store and check out their bikes that they're restoring and, bikes they have for sale and stuff and talk to them about the parts that I'm going to buy, in person. I like doing that sort of thing. So I jumped in my ex-wife's minivan, hauled up to Chicago and, got the dime tour and everything, picked out, my parts and stuff like that. And somehow we got on the topic of cars. And the people at Scooter Works were like, we just started this other venture, kind of a side project that we're calling Tiny Motor Works. And what they were doing was they would go to Italy and buy up Fiat 500 Cinquecentos, ship them back to the United States, and once they got to Chicago, they would strip them down to the bare metal, repaint everything, and then restore them from the ground up. So when the car rolled out of their garage and onto the parking lot, it was essentially a brand new car. You could go buy a brand new, fully restored, Fiat 500 in the year 2000 at this place. And the price was $89.99. So I had $10,000 to spend on a car. And I was like, wow, that is within my budget. It's not a modern car. That's something I can learn about and work on myself and just keep running. Because I hate that you go buy a car or even motorcycles now. Every mile you put on them is just another mile closer to the salvage yard. And that's not what I wanted to do with my money because I think cars are a terrible thing to spend money on. So I was like, well, if I invest, kind of invested in that, that's a car that I can keep for a long time. I'll do that, And sure, it's underpowered. I mean, top speed on that thing was only about 55 miles an hour. There's no AC. I don't even think it had a radio. But it was just all simple stuff. And that's kind of what I wanted. to do was buy something like that, that I could just tool on and keep running. So I was like, wow, this is great. So I gathered up all my scooter parts, threw them in the van, and headed home to tell my ex-wife about this car that I had found that I'm going to buy. I'm like finally excited to buy a car because I really wasn't looking forward to it at all. And so my excitement was short-lived. So I got home, showed her the car, and she didn't like it. She's like, that's ugly. No, you ain't buying that. Well, she already had the minivan, so it was going to be my car. So it was going to be a fight, but I could still buy it. So like, well, at least my friends and coworkers and people like that will back me up and give me some support on this. So I showed them, all the car and told them about it. And they weren't any help either. They didn't like the car, and they had all kinds of excuses as to why I shouldn't buy the car. That's too much money for what you're getting. That car doesn't have enough power to go down the highway. Now, I wouldn't buy anything from Italy. You know what Fiat stands for, don't you?
It stands for fix it again, Tony.
That thing is all show and no go. The only reason to buy it is because of how it looks. Man, for that kind of money, you can buy 2 Hyundai Accents and even get yourself a nice IROC for that. And that car really was a lot of from the heart, type purchase and not from the head. While the mechanicals and everything on it were, things that I could work on, all that. The car, sure, it was slow and really not suited for American roads, really. But I was more thinking of just the joy I was going to get out of owning that little car and how much fun and just what kind of experiences I was going to have, with that little car, trying to do things like, take it up to the mountains and go skiing, driving into work every day, just driving into the store. It was just seemed like it would be an absolute ball to own that little car. And in the end, I relented and listened to everybody's advice. I ended up not buying the car. So now, 25 years later, I look back at it, and instead of being able to give you, or tell you the stories and little adventures of me and my little car, I get to tell you how awesome it wasn't to buy a Chevy Cavalier. So if we fast forward to today, when the Janus showed up on my list of bikes I might consider buying, and I started telling people about the bike, showing them pictures of the bike, things like that, I started hearing the exact same excuses as to why I shouldn't buy this as to what I heard 25 years ago as to why I shouldn't buy the Fiat. And I decided that this time around, I should probably make this decision because I have kicked myself for 25 years for not buying that car. And I didn't want to do that again with this bike. So that's why I didn't take anybody's advice and listen to myself this time. And I bought this bike because in the future, 25 years from now, am I going to look back on this time and be upset that I could have saved $1,500 or something and bought a different bike? Or am I going to look back on the memories and just little adventures and experiences that I have bopping around on this in a more fond light? Is $1,500 going to matter in 25 years? Or is the experiences I'm going to have worth that $1,500 25 years from now? That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at, the numbers and everything that add up on, from if I take the numbers on a spec sheet or the bill of sale, is that what is the value of the bike? Or is it more just the life experiences that I'm going to have and the joy I get from riding something like this as opposed to anything else? So I just basically decided, life's too short to spend the next 25 years kicking myself again for not buying something that I really wanted. As it's my money, I can do what I want with it. You don't have to buy one. I'm not trying to convince anybody to buy anything. On my YouTube channel, I don't do bike reviews other than things that I own. I just show you my bikes. I take you along for the ride and we go do things, and I tell you what I think of what I have. That's why I don't go to the motorcycle dealers and do test rides and things like that. I'm not here to tell anybody what to and what not to buy. Was it expensive? A little bit, not overly so. This isn't like an Arch motorcycle or something I can only see by watching Jay Leno's garage because it's just out of reach and unattainable. We're not talking about that levels of money. So in the end, I hope me and Bimble have many years together. I can keep her running and we go off and have lots of adventures. And like I said, I've been married 3 times, so I'm no stranger to pain and suffering. But those first 2 broads, they caused me more pain in the butt than this hardtail ever will. Catch you guys next time.